MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Last week on My Fantasy Podcast.
He did shoot a decent score, but being retired now, being in that CBS broadcast booth, it'll probably give him a lot more time. Des heard talking about Tony, and
was he saying, "Come back to football, come back to football, Tony"? Good Lord, I don't even know if we talked about this last week, but we have recently found that Jay Cutler has been hired by Fox as an analyst. Who wants to see Jay Cutler? That is just stupid, okay? I mean, you can have a little bit of personality, and as I said, I've never seen Jay Cutler laugh in 15 years, and that's the absolute truth. I haven't.
He's like, I don't know if I can say this on air, but I'm gonna go shoot a bear. And it was just weird. And I would like to know Russell Westbrook's stats if Kawhi is guarding him. It's probably 18 turnovers, and he only had 15 possessions.
Why did it go to Westbrook?
Because that's where you were going with it. It all leads back to all you're going to say, June 26th. Hi, June 26th.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's where you're going to find him, June 26th, accepting the MVP award. But that's not where I was going. He's gone, right, Dan? He has nothing to do with these playoffs anymore.
Exactly. Okay, let's keep it that way.
Podcast peeps, how you do? It's that time again. It's that time that we're back. We ain't going anywhere. It's My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. The time of week you all at home wait for, anticipating all week long. Let's get away from this political news and talk sports. So we're going to do all that, everything you want to talk about this week in the world of sports, and answer, of course, your mailbag questions. Thanks for joining us on YouTube and listening on SoundCloud, iTunes, checking us out on the website, checking us out on SPN, Sports Podcasting Network, WBLZSports.com. However you check us out, appreciate it. I am Brandon Reed, your host, one of your hosts, and lead writer for My Fantasy Podcast. It's going to be a big show today. Again, we're in May. We're in that time of year where there isn't really a whole lot going on. There is and there isn't. We're kind of almost in the dead period. NFL, that is. Got baseball just kicking up. The NBA playoffs are going on, but not really a whole lot to talk about there, although we did have the NBA lottery last night. So we'll talk about that. But jam-packed show today that we're going to talk about everything from the NBA lottery, NBA playoffs. You got free agent signings, potential free agent signings in the NFL. We're going to talk MLB fairly heavily today because we got a lot of questions to answer about Major League Baseball fantasy and what you want to know. So we're going to get into it right now, and let's do it. So let me introduce that other host. He is the man. He is our founder, our president, our editor-in-chief, our fearless leader, our draft expert, everything draft, every sport. He goes by Dan the Man Shaw. What up, Dan?
What's going on, Brandon? And the listeners out there, don't mind my voice if it's a little hoarse. I'm a little bit under the weather, but we're powering through. It started last podcast, and it's continuing on into this one. So it's a nice long one, and I'm ready. I'm ready to get talking.
It all started when the Rockets got blown out at home in Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals. Just saying.
It could be Lil B. He might have put a curse on me.
Stirring it up. also, that reminds me, a whole lot in the news whip around. Big topics today in the news whip around we're going to get to in just a second. And James Harden is one of them, but not for any little B controversy, but something else you probably heard of, which is just a crazy story. But anyway, James Harden in the news, even though his Rockets are no longer in the NBA playoffs. But I got to tell you guys, Dan has been down because a lot going on right now, and he hasn't been active on our message boards. He has been out. So sorry you had to go through that on Mother's Day too, man. So you weren't very active this Mother's Day, I take it.
No, I mean, I was able to. My mom and I are very close, but I was able to get up, cook a little lunch. But beyond that, that's all she got of me. The rest of me was just sleeping, sinus infection, allergies. I wasn't a pleasure to be around, but we got to spend some time together. But yeah, it was rough. I was sick on Mother's Day and also Thanksgiving this past year, so I can't get out of its way.
No, that's true. That's true. And you also, I guess, maybe in the tail end, you were sick of even enjoying that Astros-Yankees series that was going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did like it just because the Astros were able to pull out, I think, 3 out of 4. Yeah. So anytime your favorite team has the number 1 record in all of the major leagues, you can't complain too much.
Well, that flipped real quickly from last week when we were talking about the Yankees having the best record. Then they meet up with the Astros in a 4-game series, and whoop.
Yeah, it was a good one too. I mean, I do see the slide for the Yankees coming, and it starts when you play the good teams. They've had a nice schedule to start the year, but the guys that they have hitting, I don't expect to be hitting the way they are now. In a couple months, and I think we're going to start to see that.
So jam-packed show today. Yeah, we're also going to bring in Orlando Torres, of course, in just a second. He'll go through the NBA with us and everything else. And we're going to bring in Ryan Thomas in a little bit later in the show, and he'll go through all the mailbag questions with us. So you at home are going to get treated today because the mailbag questions are going to be answered by 4 of us on today's show. So you're definitely getting your money's worth out of your mailbag questions this week, guaranteed. So jam-packed show. Let's get into it. Why don't we start with that news whip around? So Dan, today I want to start out with, first of all, the draft lottery was last night. Celtics did get that number 1 pick. Before we even get into the topic, I want to get your take real quick on this. Has it ever been a time, because I don't really think so, that the number 1 seed in either conference in the playoffs, who is currently competing in the conference finals, has received the number 1 pick in the draft? They are set up big time.
Yeah, I think the last time it happened was like 1983 with the Lakers, and I think they got James Worthy, something like that around that year and time. But yeah, I mean, the Celtics and Danny Ainge they're set up perfectly for success. To compete with LeBron in the East for multiple years to come. So you got to give props to Danny Ainge, the way he was able to foresee the future, trading 3, potentially 3 Hall of Fame players to Brooklyn, who, at the time that they did that, I think everybody thought the Nets would become the favorite in the East. And, how times have turned. The Celtics trade their franchise players. And a few years down the road, they're still the number 1 seed. Now they have the number 1 pick because the Nets are terrible. So very well done by Danny Ainge and the whole Celtics brass there.
Yep. So we'll get into that in just a little bit later. And last night I teased you and hinted a little bit of my scenario for the Celtics and left a cliffhanger there for you. And I think you're stumped. You have no idea what I'm going to say, do you?
No, I part of me doesn't even want to hear it, Brandon, but I'm sure our listeners do, because you did have me thinking when you did bring it out there. But it's been about 24 hours and I've lost its luster. So we'll find out tonight.
It's not even that complicated, but it's going to make sense to you. So we'll talk about that. But the Lakers are going to receive the 2nd pick in this year's draft. So that leads us down the road, as it looks like Lonzo Ball has fallen right into the hands of Magic Johnson and the Lakers, which is exactly what LeVar Ball told us was going to happen, and it looks like it's probably going to happen. So news came out today that Lonzo is really only going to work out for one team, and that's the plan, and that is the Lakers. So not a big surprise. Is it a smart move, wise move, or does it not really matter because this whole thing is already predetermined at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Lonzo, it's probably a smart move. He wants to go to the Lakers. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. I believe the Lakers feel the same way. They want Lonzo more than any other prospect. So I think it's a match made in heaven when the Lakers got that 2 pick. You know, I was smiling with thinking of broken teeth LeVar Ball and how happy he probably was last night. Because this is exactly what he wanted, and this is what he needed for his Triple B big baller brand to take the world by storm in probably 3 to 6 months.
We'll see. We'll get into that in just a second. But is there any way that the Celtics hold this number 1 pick for leverage over the Lakers? We talked about this a little bit last night on our My Fantasy Sports Talk message board. That is there any way would the Lakers fall for that? Would they be willing to give up anything if the Celtics held Lonzo Ball hostage with that number 1 pick? Would the Lakers just say, all right, we'll take Markelle Fultz or whoever else, or would you think they covet Lonzo Ball that deeply?
No, I mean, I don't think you would see them move up or swap picks with Boston at all. I mean, if Boston were to do that, I think the Lakers would just sit back and say, okay, well, we're going to grab the better player in Markelle Fultz if you take Lonzo Ball, so go ahead, and kind of just tempt it that way. I mean, I think Lonzo Ball is going to be a star at the next level, but I think that much higher of Markelle Fultz. I think he's going to be, by far and away the best player in this draft class.
Well, I think that's the consensus, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't see Markelle Fultz a whole lot play this year with Washington, but it's pretty much been the consensus all year long by most basketball experts and analysts that this dude is the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, I've being a Pac-12 fan and being a Colorado fan, I was able to watch a lot of Pac-12 hoops, and from his first game where he just kind of took over offensively. And was the leader of that Washington team, basically since game 1. So I think he has special qualities, and I think it'll be a mistake if the Celtics go anything other than Fultz number 1.
Okay, so like I said, it kind of is all falling into place. Not sure there's any surprises. When we get to the draft lottery talk, I'll give you my scenario with the Celtics and get into that a little bit deeper. But for now, I just kind of want to mention that Lonzo Ball plans to work out for the Lakers and the Lakers only. Now, briefly, let's talk about LeVar Ball, if we must. It's the hot thing to do, so we'll do it. But this is not you typically, Dan. I don't know why you've jumped on the BBB bandwagon so hard and heavy. I just don't see it. Most people are not, but you're all in on this dude. You think this brand is going to be the next biggest thing.
I mean, maybe not. I don't think it's going to reach Nike status or anything like that. I think if anything, if Lonzo signs a shoe deal with one of those types of companies, they're going to be bringing big baller brand with it. But I just like the way LeVar, goes about his business. He doesn't care about what other people think about him, and what he's doing is genius. He's getting everybody to talk about him. You don't even have to be a basketball fan, know who Lonzo Ball is, but LeVar Ball and big baller brand. So I like the way he's going about getting his name out there. He's doing it in a brash way, but in this type of world, in this type of society of America,
we had a president elected by doing the same thing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I just give him props for it. I don't necessarily believe everything that he does, and I think a lot of it is just going kind of with him, because I see his vision. I see where he wants to take his sons, his family, his brand. I see where he wants to go with it, and I see how he's doing it. And I think a lot of people are actually blind to how he's doing it, because they're talking about him. We're talking about him. Your mom's talking about him, and you're just basically he's coming out of your mouth, and it's working. And I think eventually you're going to see his finances skyrocket, and the brand, whether the brand takes off or not, he's going to become kind of just second nature in today's society. You're just going to talk LeVar Ball and know exactly who that is.
So I guess my point is that a ton of shoe ventures fail every single year, even with people that already have money and have the financial backing to get a startup off the ground. They fail every single year. 8 out of 10 startups, period, fail. Do you believe, of course he's being the mouthpiece, of course he's being loud and boisterous, but do you believe he really has the intellect and marketing strategy and business acumen to really make this thing succeed? Do you really think he is that dude, or is he the drunk uncle in the room, which is what I say?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with those 8 out of 10 startups that fail. Is everybody in America talking about them? Does everybody in America know even who they are, what the name of those companies are? Probably
but are they
not.
talking about them for the right reason? Because I'll be honest with you, and you know this, Dan, if you did a survey, most people out there are saying, hell no, I ain't buying that crap.
Well, you're not buying it because of that price point. And so maybe that's one part where he got a little bit ahead of himself. And that's why I expect more shoes to come out of, a line of shoes at various price points. So as soon as he gets that down, I definitely think you'll see it start to take off. So, I don't see him being a complete flop. I don't know how successful he can take it. But I do.
The numbers right now are not great. The numbers it's early on, yeah. But when you have a launch like that, and it hasn't gone very well. But I'll say this, I'll give him this. I think he may have sold enough to at least cover his upfront production costs, and that's not bad. I think it's way off from what he anticipated or what he wanted, but I think he has made enough to at least cover these production costs up front, so he's staying afloat even with a $500 initial launch price point.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there who buy into what he says, and they want to be a big baller. Brandon, I'm pretty sure, in your own home, you probably take a little crumpled up piece of paper and throw it into your garbage. And when you throw it, instead of saying Kobe, you say, I'm a big baller. And because you say that, it probably goes in. And I think it's going to start to catch on a little bit more than it does once he gets that $500 price point down.
Man, I'm still rocking them 1 cent little pennies, dog. You gotta recognize Memphis. But man, I don't know. So that kind of brings us to the other thing, the latest news. This dude really is like the president. There's something breaking with him crazy every single day. So he had a major confrontation on the Colin Cowherd show today with Christine Lay. I don't really know how you pronounce your last name. Lay. Anyway, the gorgeous blonde on Colin Cowherd's show. And you've said this. I had someone else on Facebook today comment about this, that she's horrible at her job, but to me, that's regardless. The way he acted on that show, he wouldn't even look in her direction. Forget her journalism ability. She pressed him with the question. He didn't want to answer it, and he wouldn't even look at her. It was very disrespectful with the "stay in your lane" comment. That shocked me. You were on his side on that, Dan. Seriously?
Here's the thing. No, I mean, he definitely acted like a big baby. It's not the way I would represent myself during an interview or anything like that. But I understand to a point of why he did that. I mean, Christine Leahy has made it known, and as an avid listener of the Colin Cowherd show, I mean, she's made it known for months since, LeVar Ball has been in the media, that she doesn't like him. She thinks he's stupid. She thinks his brand is stupid. And she's publicly said that multiple times on the show. And even right before LeVar Ball came on, she was bashing the brand, saying she would never wear that, different things like that. So I think LeVar kind of came in with a mindset of, I'm not going to even associate with her. I'm not going to, acknowledge her or do anything like that. So when he's doing the interview with Colin, and Christine butts in like she does, it's not anything that she was abnormal. She does it all the time. I just think he took it the wrong way and acted probably like how he is. I mean, he seems like kind of a larger child and acts disrespectful a lot. So I don't agree with the way he portrayed himself, but I don't think it's blasphemous. He's against women or anything like that. I just think it's that particular person. And Christine Leahy, let's be honest, I mean, she got that job mostly because of one reason, and we know what that is. I mean, I don't know if you've seen her on some of her other works like American Ninja Warrior, but I'm surprised she still is employed. We'll just keep it at that.
Okay, so let's face it. She is the Megyn Kelly of sports journalism, right? This is so headed towards LeVar Ball in the White House, is it not? Everything we're just saying, it's just at a sports level, but it was so how our president got elected. I'm not going to get into to politics, even though this is a major time in our political landscape and history, but is this not so comparable to our current president that's sitting in the White House right now? Everything you're saying, like almost the disrespect to women and the boisterous and the loud mouthpiece, saying whatever, I'm going to succeed no matter what, stay out of my way. Man, he's headed to the White House, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, and it's kind of odd because I think the way I view LeVar Ball and our lovely president are complete opposites as well. So it's kind of weird when you put it like that. But I guess that's when you have a scope of how you view things, and I have a scope of Christine Leahy, and I'm sure that that puts the judgment differently for me. So overall, it's not a good look, but again, it's getting people to talk about him.
Yep. No doubt. That is Lonzo Ball. That is LeVar Ball. We'll see what happens on the draft June 22nd. Not sure there's going to be many surprises, but he's most likely going to the Lakers, and maybe that big baller brand BBB will explode. Who knows? But we'll put a bookmark in the whole Ball family for now. Let's talk about we got some interesting news this week that the Madden cover has been released. The Madden cover athlete has been announced, and there's always this stigma going back, probably 12, 15 years of a Madden curse. Well, this year it's going to be the GOAT edition, and Tom Brady is going to be on the cover of Madden 18, I guess. Madden 18. Yeah, I think so. So anyway, and he was just said, reported saying to Bob Kraft just a couple of months ago that after the Super Bowl win that he could play and wants to play another 5-6 years. John Madden and EA Sports may have something else to say about that. I don't know. Are you believing this, Dan? Is there anything to this? How worried are you for your prediction that he will play another 5-6 years?
I'm not worried at all. I think if anything, he's probably going to play in more games, obviously, than he did last year with 12 regular season games with his suspension. So I'm not concerned about it. I don't know if you saw the commercial that he put out, kind of calming fans down, where he would break a mirror, walked under a ladder to show that curses like that aren't real. I enjoyed that. If anything, I'm more worried about him breaking those mirrors and walking under the ladder than I am the Madden curse.
Yeah. I'm more worried about opposing defenses for a 40-year-old quarterback is what I'm more worried about. But I don't know, man. I look back. So last year, honestly, I forgot who was on the cover last year. Was it Gronk?
Gronk.
Yeah. The year before that, it was my boy ODB, and he had no problems. I mean, we were talking about 2 years ago, so he actually had a great year that year. That was the year he helped me win a fantasy championship, I believe. So he didn't really suffer the curse. Gronk did. And there's been numerous guys that have in the past. So no, I don't believe in the little B stuff and all the conspiracy theories and the curses, the superstitions and everything like that. But it's just an interesting point, and we'll see. Is this Brady's first Madden cover? Looking back, I can't even think. It is. It was. Yeah. So we'll see. Very interesting. It's going to be the GOAT edition of Madden. So just something to keep your eye out on for this upcoming football season. If anything at all happens to Tom Brady, it's going to be reflected back to that Madden curse. Interesting. So there you go. Keep a lookout. But let's talk about the last part of the news whip around I wanted to talk to before we move on and get Orlando in here and talk NBA. James Harden, Dan, did you see this? I know you saw this. I just heard about this the other day. But Moses Malone Jr., which I forgot even where he played, how old he was. I thought he was maybe college age now. No, he's older than James Harden. He played for South Carolina State back in like 01, 02, 03. But Moses Malone Jr. was on Facebook last year criticizing a James Harden basketball camp in the Houston area that James Harden was charging $250 for. So Moses Malone Jr. was talking about the inner city kids in Houston, the area, can't afford that. You know, he's filthy rich. He should be better than that. So he thinks that James Harden took that to heart and put a hit on him where recently, I'm not sure I even read when this was. It was recently, though, that Moses Malone Jr. was attacked and beaten up by 4 or 5 guys. All those guys subsequently were arrested, and Moses Malone Jr. claims that while they were beating him down, they were saying to him, "You can't disrespect James Harden like that." So he tied 2 and 2 together, and Moses Malone Jr. thinks it was related to revenge from James Harden about the comments on Facebook. What the hell is going on? Sounds like a little bit of jealousy on Moses Malone Jr.'s part, which I just said is older than James Harden and lives in the Houston area. What's up with this story, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, I don't buy into it a whole lot. Supposedly, I looked into the story a little bit. Moses Malone Jr. was going into a strip club. The bouncer denied him. And then 3 guys or 4 guys plus the bouncer started jumping him. So, if James Harden put this hit out there, it's kind of weird. Like, when did he do this? The facts aren't adding up. And
$20,000.
Yeah. On top of that, Harden's never been charged. I don't even think he's been brought in to be questioned by the police. So I don't think law enforcement is buying it at all. I think Moses Malone is just trying to get a couple dollars off out of Harden. Maybe he's hoping to settle out of court or something like that, just to kind of get some pocket change from him. But I don't buy in too much to it, and we'll see where it goes, which I don't expect it to be anywhere.
Did you remember Moses Malone Jr. at all?
No, not at all. Moses Malone, yeah. Moses Malone's the last MVP to win the award without being a top 3 seed, and we're going to probably get another one this year with Russell Westbrook. So pretty crazy.
When you're balling, you're balling. But no, I didn't remember Moses Malone Jr. He didn't play for a high level college. He played 2 years and averaged about 15 points per year and didn't really do anything else. 30 plus minutes per game and averaged about 15 points per game in 2 years at South Carolina State. So very lackluster basketball career for Junior. So I don't know, man. I think lives and resides in the Houston area, so I think there's just some bad blood there for whatever reason, some jealousy. I don't know. I just can't see James Harden putting out a $20,000 hit over some stupid Facebook comments. James Harden, although I've talked bad about him this year, but this is way beneath him. This is stupid. Okay, this is stupid. If this really is true, then I'll put him in the category of Gilbert Arenas dumb. Like, what are you doing? You remember Gilbert Arenas, Dan?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. He liked to play with the Grizzlies, I believe, for a short stint. Did he not?
I'm not sure he ever played, though. Yeah, you're right. He was on the team, but I don't remember him playing. He's kind of like Allen Iverson. I'm not sure he ever got in the game. But he had the whole bringing the gun into the locker room incident. And if you've never read the details of that, and I forgot a lot of the details and who the player was
pretty stupid. Like it was a bet, like they were playing dice or something on the plane or something like that. With I think the other guy was Javaris Crittenton, who I believe is in jail now for murder.
Yes. No known gang affiliation. If I'm wrong on that, sorry, don't come after me. But what I read, I think he wasn't a great dude either. But he confronted Gilbert Arenas about a debt, and Gilbert Arenas said, "I ain't paying you, dude." So I think both of them had a gun in the locker room. And that was the year after Gilbert Arenas signed a huge contract, and his NBA career was never the same after that. So I don't know, just a bad situation. But these guys don't always have the coolest, calmest demeanor and do the right thing. But I don't see James Harden doing that. That is crazy. So interesting news there, and that concludes the news week around for this week. We're about to bring in Orlando Torres and talk NBA draft lottery and NBA playoffs next. So our man Orlando in the house, not going so well for your Spurs, but I'm gonna start off from the top. You're coming in under fire, but Brandon Reed here, Dan Chalk is here, and now our man Orlando Torres, residing in San Antonio, our resident actor, thespian, got a brand new Toyota out of the deal. He's doing things in the Texas area, and his Spurs could take some notice. I wish your Spurs had the energy you do, all the things you do, man. They're running out of gas quick.
Yeah, no, it was awful. It was awful. It was hard to watch that game. Depressing, but I mean, it is what it is.
So what do you think, man? Do you really have a chance? You're sticking with them. And by the way, our predictions pieces are out, our prediction piece. Now that we're wrapping up the Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals, the writers have made their selections, and that is out on the website right now. FantasySportsTalk.com.
I will say I made those prediction before game one. I know Dan wasn't feeling too well. So by the time it came out, it kind of seemed a little odd that I picked them in 6.
Odd? Yeah, I got more words for it. But
but that was before the whole Kawhi injury. Now, realistically, I mean, I've said it before too. There's there's a good chance. Of course, we might not pull it off. I mean, is there a chance? Of course, there's a chance. But obviously, without a healthy Kawhi, there's not a chance. But I did expect it to at least be more competitive. Nothing like the way it was last night, especially with Coach Pop. Nothing else was a little bit more surprising. How just sloppy they were from beginning to end. Just no energy at all.
Well, it's kind of weird because I do think you guys have some promising young pieces. I like Jonathan Simmons and DeJounte Murray. Man, you need to sign that dude because he could be a major part of what you do going forward. So I like the pieces, but this particular year, you got no chance if Kawhi Leonard really isn't 100%. You're playing the Warriors. They hadn't lost a playoff game yet. They probably have a winning streak going on for a long time now towards the tail end of the regular season. I don't know. Maybe they rested at the end of the regular season and lost a game. But anyway, they have been turning it up or on fire the last couple of months since Kevin Durant really got healthy, hadn't lost a game in the playoffs. So you need Kawhi at 105% and definitely not 70%.
No, not at all. Not just him either. He needs help. You need
LaMarcus Aldridge. What is up with Aldridge? Give me your take on LaMarcus Aldridge, Orlando. Do you look to move him? Are you done with him? Is he worth hanging on to? What's up?
Honestly, the feeling that I get from watching Pop talk about him, because he called him out yesterday, but he's kind of been calling him out without calling out his name. Yeah. Yesterday in press coverage was the first time I seen him publicly call him out, saying that Marcus used to play. But honestly, I feel if the Spurs didn't give him all that money, and he wouldn't be with the Spurs or he'd be on the bench. That's the feeling. I think the fact that they give him the money, he has to be on the floor. And I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but I don't know what's going on with him. It's just lousy. 4'11", 8 points. He's 5'6" inches taller than Draymond Green. A big man like that just attack the basket and he'll settle for a jump shot. And I think that's what's depressing to watch because he's a lot better than that. Marcus Aldridge, we've all seen him, and we've all seen him play, have some good games, and with the Spurs as well. So it's kind of odd. There's like no answer why he's kind of playing like that.
Well, I think you're right. You have to play him. I mean, he's got skill. He got low post skill. He's good around the basket, 10 foot and in. Strong presence. He is that body that you need. But he's just not stepping up. And I'll be honest with you, he really didn't with Portland either. The Grizzlies ran over him. Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph did what they wanted to with LaMarcus Aldridge in his last season at Portland. So never was that really guy. Of course, he's a great player. I would say borderlining elite player, way above average, all-star caliber player, but he never really has been that guy that says, give me the damn ball, watch what I do.
Yeah, he hasn't been in. Now that Kawhi's out either, he should, they're basically telling him, this is your role, step up and take it. And he's still, for whatever reason, not stepping up and filling in those big shoes that, the opportunity's presenting itself. And hopefully, I do think this, depends on Kawhi, because I have a feeling the ankle injury is a little bit more serious than we all expected. Especially,
he's like rolled it like 3 times in the last.
He rolled it in 3 times, and if he's not ready for game 3, a sweep. It's not worth risking his future over this series. I mean, it'll be painful, but there's realistically, if you got no chance of going out there and Kawhi's 60-70%, it's not worth it. And so might as well just get the series over with and just go ahead and start preparing for next season.
We'll get into the NBA draft lottery in just a second, but while we're on the NBA playoffs, let's just stick to it. So the Cavs and Celtics start tonight. Boston will have home court advantage. Orlando, while we're on the NBA playoffs, we had a sweep in the Western Conference predictions, and again, look up our conference finals predictions piece on the website right now, myfantasysportstalk.com. Everyone agreed that the Cavs are going to win this. So we vary in how many games it's going to take, but no one's giving the number 1 seed in the East a chance. Orlando, really?
Yeah, no. I know the Celtics kind of finished strong in the end of the regular season. And, they got hot. But realistically, the Cavs are going to be in the finals again next year. And probably for another year or two. I don't see anybody knocking out the Cavs at the moment. I know there's a lot of young, promising teams coming out of the East or players. But, I'm not good. And I like this. I like what Isaiah Thomas is doing. More than likely they're going to have Marcus with them next season. So they're going to have a pretty dangerous backcourt. But just in this series alone, just out of respect for the Celtics, I want to give them 1 game. I guess kind of like the Spurs and Warriors situation. But I don't see the Celtics knocking off the Cavs at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm sorry. I just don't see the Celtics pulling off more than 1 game against the Cavs.
Dan, Eastern Conference Finals, you're not giving your Celtics a chance at all. You picked them, but you kind of backtracked here when it was time to put the feet to the fire and make a prediction.
Yeah, I picked them in October.
But they've got the 1 seed.
Yeah. They had a great regular season. I just don't think they match up very well with Cleveland, and they're not primed for the playoffs. What NBA postseason basketball is all about. And Isaiah Thomas, and he does well, but you need that second punch. You need that second compliment. Who's it going to be night in, night out? They got lucky in Game 7. Kelly Olynyk off the bench had the game of his career, but without that, they wouldn't even be in this situation. It would be Washington taking on Cleveland. So, they need that second guy to show up, and I just don't think he's on the roster. Al Horford hasn't been that guy. He's kind of playing like LaMarcus Aldridge, not taking the shots when he needs to, not being aggressive. Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, good players, but not scorers. So I just don't think, for the big 3 that Cleveland has, they're going to be putting up the points, and I don't know if Boston is going to be able to match them offensively.
I like the fact that Boston has the number 1 pick in the draft. Again, we'll get into that in the draft lottery in just a second. I'll drop the bombshell on Dan, but I honestly think Washington was the more talented team. So, Dan, do you think Washington may have given Cleveland a little bit more trouble than what Boston presents?
Yeah, because they have that 1-2 punch with at least Wall and Beal. And to be honest, whichever Morris brother is on that team, I think it's Markieff. the dude can play, and I mean, he can make some 3-pointers. Like, he's got some range.
Otto Porter,
Otto Porter, who I think could probably guard LeBron James pretty decently. I mean, as much as you can of LeBron James in the postseason, but 100%, yeah,
you get 6 fouls. You get 6 fouls, use them all, whatever it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Wizards definitely matched up better. I mean, I think I predicted 6 games. I think that's even pretty high. I can see this being a 4 or 5 game series in favor of the Cavs.
And Gortat may have had his way down low because the Cavs have nothing nothing even close to a true center as Marcin Gortat is.
Yeah. I mean, I think Thompson might have, his length might have given Gortat a little bit of issues, but yeah, they don't have that true center that has that brute force kind of like they had last year with Timothy Mozgov.
Yep. So I'm kind of leaning that way, man. I just wish Washington would turn that corner, but that was an outstanding series. How about that series, guys? Went 7 games. The home team won every single game. So Washington has just got to continue to. I think the Bogdanovich move really helped them out. I think if they can hang on to him. And I don't know, just add another piece. They just almost need like the fire lit under them for whatever reason, as weird as that may say, because John Wall is a beast, and I still stick to it. If I'm starting my team today and give me any point guard, I'll take John Wall.
See, here's the problem, though. John Wall basically had the exact same fourth quarter as James Harden has, and you bashed Harden for his fourth quarters, so you got to bash Wall too. I mean, he threw up dud. I think he was 0 for 13 in the fourth quarter in Game 7. That's not clutch to me. I don't think he's a winner, so I think that's part of the problem too.
I don't know. I'm rolling with him, man. That's the worst game I've ever seen him have probably all year long.
Well, not only that, like, it was a great series, but you didn't feel good about the winner coming out of the game because, it would have been nice to see either Washington or Boston go on the road and win a game, and neither team could pull that off successfully. So it was a great series, but, realistically, either team wasn't going to match up with the Cavs. I do agree that Washington would have put up a better fight, though, rather than Boston.
I think so. I really think so. But what I really don't like for the chances of Boston is that Cleveland's been sitting back there for 2 weeks. I think they flew to Miami. I think they've been banana boat riding or something for a week. So I don't like that because if anything, I think that's what an older LeBron James probably needs, the rest, and they're going to come on, and again, they're going to flip that switch, and I'm not sure that Boston has the horses to compete in this race, and so I think that's kind of unfortunate because they've just been sitting back there getting the rest. I mean, this was unprecedented, the way we had 2 different teams in each conference sweep through the first 2 rounds and haven't lost a game. I don't know. I think tonight is huge for the Celtics. Would it change you guys' mind or any way and maybe influence you a little bit or give you optimism that Boston could hang in there if they win Game 1 at home tonight? Orlando?
No. I mean, I could see them, stealing a Game 1, but because they've been playing for the past week, so they're still in that mode compared to, we just said, Cleveland has, I think, 9 days off. That's true. So I could kind of see that, scenario like that happening. But then I could see the Cavs jumping in right into it, Game 2, and just taking over, getting back used to what they were doing in previous 2 series.
I actually predicted this series to go down to 7 games. Really a large part because Boston does have the home court advantage, and I really don't think Cleveland has turned it on 100% yet. Yeah, they flipped that switch. They hadn't lost a game yet, but I'm not sure that they are even still fully clicking like they were last year quite yet because they had a lot of different struggles throughout the season this year. And so I don't know. I think it will be a little bit more competitive. Orlando, what did you have it in, 5 games?
Yeah, I had it in 5.
Dan, what did you have?
6.
Yeah. You guys, Dan probably has the safer pick there. I think it will be a little bit of a competitive series. I think Boston will win some home games out of 4. I think they'll win at least 2. We'll see. But as far as that Western Conference series, how many more weeks do I got to get on here and tell y'all? You might as well give Golden State that trophy. Y'all still ain't seeing it?
Right now, I'll give you that because I mean, obviously the Spurs they're hurting, but like I'm saying, and I'm not hating on Golden State. I mean, I know it's a pretty good chance, but um, I'm still gonna stick with Cleveland if they meet up in the finals. I think that'll go full game 7. So I'm not gonna say they're gonna completely run over Cleveland. I know that's a matchup too that the Cavs have been wanting. I know they haven't been clicking as well, but you could kind of say the same thing about the Warriors if you think about it. For part of the season, they didn't have Kevin Durant. He was off and on throughout the season. So Klay Thompson is still kind of off and on. I mean, they are a pretty good team when they all get clicking, but the Warriors haven't been exactly perfect all season either. If you go back and look at their games.
Yeah, but I'll tell you why that was. First of all, you had the addition of Kevin Durant and learning all to play together. Then they started clicking. We're through probably over halfway through the season, maybe close to 3/4 season, and then that piece, Kevin Durant gets injured with the hyperextended knee, whatever exactly happened to him. So he missed time. So they're having to go back and play like the old Warriors. Man, other guys are having to step up. Now you're having to introduce him back into the mix, and I just think they're clicking, man. Anytime you got 2 MVPs, former MVPs in your starting lineup and 4 All-Stars in your starting lineup, it's going to be a tough out. And they have to be the odds-on favorite by far. So I don't know. Dan, what do you think about this Western Conference series right now before we move on to the draft lottery? Give me a game's prediction now that it's 2-0 and it's looking like it's looking.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Warriors are going to beat the Spurs, probably 5, maybe 6 if Kawhi comes back. I think Golden State definitely should be favored, to win the NBA Finals. But if they don't, I think it proves that Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are drastically overrated and aren't worth a damn. I think Steph Curry is going to crumble in the NBA Finals, similar to how he did last year. And Kevin Durant, he needs to show me a championship. I think he should have had some with your boy Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. I don't see that killer instinct in either of those guys, and I think they definitely should win. They have the most talent on the court whenever they're on the court, and I think they're light years more talented than Cleveland, but I don't think they have that killer ability the way LeBron James does. And if LeBron James wins this championship, I'm putting them in close to that same class as Michael.
We're getting close to that conversation, right? That's going to be a conversation for a whole different day because that is a whole other 30-minute conversation.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that there'll never be another Michael in any sport. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter because of the level of excellence and perfection that Michael did it in. I mean, once he won his first NBA championship, he won 3 in a row, retired to play baseball for 2 years, came back, his next full season, they won 3 more in a row, and he retired. It's like if he was playing, he was winning, and that's it. Not to mention the Olympic success they had. Just the level of excellence he had. It wasn't even like LeBron in the Heat days, with the big 3 in Miami. They lost their first one, won a couple, lost another one. It's like once Michael won it and had a taste of it, you realize this guy's, after he won his first championship, he never lost another one in any full season that he played in. And just the clutchness, and just the charisma. There will never be another Michael. But I think we're approaching that status of where we say LeBron James is the second best basketball player ever. To me, I truly believe that. He's just a physical specimen that is unbelievable, can play 1 through 5. I was having a conversation with one of my buddies, Marcus Carlton, a couple of weeks ago, and I said that instead of 2-3, everybody wears 23. Don't try to beat Jordan. If I was LeBron James, I'd wear number 15 because I can play 1 through 5. And yes, he can. He can play 1 through 5 if he has to on the basketball floor. So, but yeah, we're approaching that conversation, and it's happening really quickly because of what he did. Went to Miami, won the championships, came back home to Cleveland, and just arose a city, that had been dying for championship glory for many years. And it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. And I'm so glad they won last year, but I don't think they're going to win it this year. So let's talk about the NBA draft lottery real quick. We, of course, mentioned that the Boston Celtics did claim the number 1 pick last night, fell right into their hands. Fortunately for the Lakers and Magic Johnson, they got the 2nd pick, probably going to get Lonzo Ball there. Philadelphia 76ers, no surprise, they get a top lottery pick again. Phoenix Suns get the 4th pick. Sacramento Kings the 5th pick. Orlando Magic 6. Timberwolves, Dan. Why are they in the lottery? I thought they were a 4 seed. But they get the 7th pick. New York Knicks will get the 8th seed. Dallas gets the 9th pick. I keep saying seeds, picks. And Sacramento Kings once again get another top 10 pick. They round out the top 10. Any surprises from that draft lottery, Orlando, or what stuck out to you, or who do you think is set up big time? I'm looking at there's several teams set up big time. This is an interesting draft. You got Boston with the number 1 pick, who's the number 1 seed in the East, like we talked about before, unprecedented. They're going to be set up for a while in the future. You got the Lakers, who are going to get their man Lonzo Ball, probably, most likely. And then you have the Kings, who have 2 top 10 picks in a loaded draft. Very interesting draft this year.
Yeah, no, it is. And I was watching a little bit of it because, that beat down that my Spurs were taking. But it was kind of funny. It was a bit the way Magic Johnson was. I don't know if you saw a bit of it. He looked kind of nervous throughout the whole show. He wasn't smiling the way he was. But I think he kind of felt a lot of the pressure. But I kind of like the Lakers having the number 2 pick because you can't tell me that. Imagine all the pressure that would be on Magic Johnson, just the Lakers in general. They had the 1st pick. You're not telling me there will be pressure to take Markelle Fultz at number 1 instead of Lonzo Ball? Or, do you really think they would have took Lonzo Ball number 1? I'm pretty sure they're going to take Lonzo Ball. I think that's the guy they want. I know he's close to home there. But I know there's still talks that they're considering Josh Jackson and De'Aaron Fox, which I highly doubt. But so I think number 2 is a pretty good pick for the Lakers because say they took Lonzo Ball number 1 overall instead of a guy like Markelle Fultz. I mean, that's something they won't have to hear about for years because, the Celtics are more than likely going to take Fultz. They could take Lonzo Ball. And so for the Lakers with the number 2 pick, I think it felt pretty good for them. And just like you said, it's a loaded draft. If you look at some of the other guys going to go afterwards, like Malik Monk, Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, it's a loaded class. And a lot of these teams in the earlier picks didn't get a lot of great players.
It is a loaded draft class that also leads to a little bit of a drama because you're not exactly sure. You're assuming Markelle Fultz is number 1. You're assuming Lonzo Ball is number 2, but they could flip-flop. Who knows? Somebody like Malik Monk, who is projected in anywhere from 4 to 8, could be selected for number 1 overall. Who really knows with a draft class this deep with guys? The guy, Zach Collins from Gonzaga, a freshman, he'll probably be in the top 10. He could drop to 15. Who knows? But so many interesting, intriguing storylines that are going to happen live on my fantasy podcast come June 22nd, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited definitely for our live draft show that night. Looking at the lottery, the first thing I noticed when they were calling the picks, the Knicks, they got screwed. They got the 8th pick. I heard reports all day because you always see conspiracy theories that the lottery is fixed. I mean, it's still mind-boggling to me that they don't draw it right in front of us. They have to do it in a locked room, which to me just adds.
And turn in your cell phone. Did you see the data analysis sheet or the formula breakdown? There's like 1,000 different scenarios. It's like, how can anyone follow that? Well, why don't you just do it old style? Pull the ping pong balls out of the blower thing, and that's who it is, right in front of us.
Yeah, it's kind of. I don't get it. So there's always going to be those conspiracy theorists out there. And all day leading up to the lottery, I was seeing how the Knicks are going to be given the top 3 because they want them to succeed. And here they are in the 8th pick, and they're a big loser. I mean, yes, it's a deep class, but you're not going to get that game-changing player at least right away that you might be able to if you had that first 1, 2, 3 pick. So. They're getting a lesser of a player, and we'll see what Phil Jackson does with it because, he had a good draft with Porzingis, but they really haven't had many draft picks total. So We'll see what Phil Jackson's made of, because he's going to need this one to count to turn that ship, which I don't think is even possible at this point.
Yeah, they did. They kind of did get hosed with that, to be honest with you, because they need it. I think it's interesting. The Kings are going to get 2 top 10 picks, and this is a very good year to do that.
Yeah. I kind of like what they did, and they almost got it was weird how the lottery worked. Just watching it yesterday, they actually had the 3rd overall pick, but the 76ers through a trade had the right to swap with them. So that's how the 76ers ended up with that pick. But they could have had, I think it was like 3 and 5 or something crazy like that before they switched. So they need talent. So this is the draft class to do it. Let's see if they can start to build pieces together. Vlade Divac running the show now. It's been a dumpster fire for so long. We'll see, but they got to start to invigorate it with some young talent, and they have the opportunity to do that this year.
Well, just in case you guys haven't looked at the entire draft order, rounds 1 and 2, I'll go ahead and let you know. I'm going to enjoy the live draft show thoroughly, but it's going to be a little less exciting because the Grizzlies have exactly 0 picks in the entire draft, barring a trade. So, look at Orlando smiling, my division foe there. So I don't know. The Grizzlies are going to have to do something. I mean, because even though they had injuries, even though I don't really have a whole lot of faith in Chandler Parsons, they still have to make moves because they have some aging pieces and some pieces that just aren't moving with the times in Tony Allen and Zach Randolph. And they're going to have to make some decisions. And they're not even going to have the opportunity this year to draft a bad player. It's not even on the table, again, barring a trade. So that's kind of boring for me, don't you think? No picks at all in the draft.
Yeah, that stinks for you.
Yeah, no. I said, that's got to be tough. I don't think the Rockets have a first round pick either, right? Weren't they another team that doesn't have they traded or something with the Lakers?
Yep, no first-round picks for the Rockets.
Yeah, so they're kind of in the same boat in the same kind of division thing, and they need some answers too. So
they have the 43rd and 45th pick in the second round, however, so they do get something out of it. But they're a team that's going to have to make some moves too. So. All right, Dan, are you ready for my scenario?
Yes, I've been anxiously awaiting. I mean, you've just been putting this on me, and I honestly, I can't wait any longer.
Like I said, it's simpler than you thought, way simpler than you thought. But as far as what I think the Boston Celtics should do, I'm hearing the theories floated out there by multiple people, including Dan, and I think Orlando has even said this as well or hinted towards it. If I'm the Boston Celtics, I draft Josh Jackson from Kansas. You do not trade your franchise player for a rookie. You're not going to get better that way. You have to add a potential franchise player to your team to get better. They need a wing player. They need a shooter. I'm not crazy about Jay Crowder. He's okay. And I'm really not crazy about Avery Bradley. He's a decent shooter, but I'm not seeing that clutchness out of him. But regardless, he's okay. But I'm saying you add Josh Jackson as that potential wing player. And if he can step up with Isaiah Thomas, you don't trade your franchise player, especially with that guy's gone through this year and what he's done on the basketball floor. You don't add another point guard piece to that mix. So you keep Isaiah, you add Josh Jackson, who can add that wing presence, defense ability, running the floor ability, shot ability, and then you might start closing that edge on Cleveland and an aging LeBron James. It's intriguing because who really knows what they're going to do? They could, like I said, possibly hold that Lonzo Ball pick ransom over the Lakers. I don't know if the Lakers would bite. They could trade it to someone else. They could surprise us and take up De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk. Who knows? They could take Zach Collins. I don't really know. Markelle Fultz has been the consensus number one talent all along, but that doesn't necessarily mean in this deep of a draft class that they have to necessarily go with that guy. If it's a deep draft class, and Josh Jackson, as far as I can see, is third on most boards, Third and first is not a huge difference in a class this deep, and Josh Jackson makes so much more sense on that Celtics team than a point guard to me. So, Dan, you shocked? What do you say?
I mean, it's definitely out of the box in my theories, just because you're banking on your 5'9", 29-year-old point guard Isaiah Thomas, and
it's your franchise point. It's your
I don't think
franchise
he's
player.
a franchise player, though. That's the thing. He's not going to lead you to a championship. You're not going to win a championship on the back of a 5'9" point guard. You're just in the NBA. You're just not going to be able to do that. So, I mean. I wouldn't bank on Isaiah Thomas. I know he gave you a great year. It's going to be, tearing at a lot of your fans' heartstrings if you do trade him or let him go. The one scenario that I pitched out to you was draft Fultz, move him more as a two guard, or even Isaiah Thomas to a two guard playing off the ball, and have those guys as your starting backcourt, and then sign like a Gordon Hayward or a Paul George or something like that to give you that extra superstar. So that way, I think you have a better all-around talent on your team. It's just working the flow together. But I just don't think your Isaiah Thomas is ever going to win a championship as a starting point guard in the NBA.
If you put, let me throw this scenario at you, Dan, real quick. If you put, say, Andrew Wiggins on the Celtics this year, does that increase your chances of beating the Cavs?
No.
You think not? You really don't think so?
No. I mean, I watched, Andrew Wiggins. I think I thought he would be where he needs to be by now. He's still got way too much growth in his game. I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he's able to take over games or anything like that at this point in his career.
I think part of his problem is the whole team is young. I mean, there is no continuity in that whole team. They have way too many young pieces. It's not necessarily all Andrew Wiggins.
Right, but I don't necessarily think you're going. He just seems like he's a few years away from being. I mean, he was tabbed as the next LeBron James, and he's nowhere near that, nowhere close to it. So I think he's still a few years away.
Now, you remember Anthony Bennett was selected number 1 overall like 4 years ago, and I don't even know where the dude is right now. I think he's working at a car wash. I'm not really sure, but he was the number 1 overall pick. You hit and miss. Like I said, I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that I did watch a whole lot of Markelle Fultz. Everybody's saying dude is a lights out shooter, definite ball handler, probably a superstar in this league. But I like Josh Jackson's potential in ceiling a lot more than Markelle Fultz personally. So I don't know, Orlando. What do you think? What is it a no-brainer to you? Take Markelle Fultz and you move Isaiah Thomas?
I have mentioned before the idea of them moving Isaiah Thomas because, like you mentioned, he's 29 years old. And even if they keep him, that'll be a great thing for Boston. But you pair him with a guy like Josh Jackson or even Markelle Fultz. I mean, really, are you gonna really bank on them to, really put pressure on the Cavs next year, a rookie and a 30-year-old Isaiah Thomas at that time? And nothing against Isaiah Thomas, but whoever they take out, they're going to need some growth before, they can start.
And I'm sorry, that's why I kind of disagree with what Dan was saying. You can't move Isaiah Thomas to the 2 guard. That's not an option. He's 5'9". That's not an option.
Yeah, so trading Isaiah Thomas wouldn't surprise me, but it's going to be interesting what the Celtics do. But I think they're going to have to go and get that guy. I think the Celtics, Danny Ainge, they believe that could be a franchise player because, realistically, Isaiah Thomas doesn't have much more time. He's really getting up there, and trading him might be one of the best things for the team they could do.
You better get that solid 2 guard or that solid wing. I mean, excuse me, really high caliber, all-star caliber player if you trade Isaiah Thomas. It could work out both ways. I would say go Josh Jackson, and you got your franchise player. Right now, he's the franchise player. He's by far the best player on the Boston Celtics, and they're the 1 seed in the East, so they're doing okay. And LeBron James ain't getting any younger, so I say you keep that and build around that. But,
even at that, I think. A guy like Paul George, I don't know if he ends up at Boston. I think even if it's not this year, I think next year he somehow ends up with the Lakers.
I'm not high on Paul George. I know a lot of Laker fans are thinking Paul George. I'm not really high on Paul George. We saw him not be clutch in the first round of the playoffs this year. And then complaining about not taking the shot. Well, dude, you're double teamed. I don't want you taking that shot. So I'm not really as high on him. But Danny Ainge, as I was going to say just a second ago, that Danny Ainge, I mean, you know what Danny Ainge did in the NBA. He loves shooters. Markelle Fultz is a lights-out shooter, so I'm not going to be surprised if he does what is expected and take Markelle Fultz. But that leaves a curious and interesting dilemma for me if you're the Boston Celtics. I say don't mess with the formula and add you a huge piece like the number 3 prospect, supposedly to most analysts, and Josh Jackson, which fits your team a lot better. I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to be very interesting. That's the draft lottery breakdown. We'll talk about that more in the weeks to come leading up to our live draft show coming up on June 22nd. So do not miss that. We're going to move on and talk NFL football next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Dan Schultz, and Orlando Torres is here with you live. We're going to bring in Ryan Thomas in just a second. But first, I wanted to break in and kind of introduce football news by going over the latest news and latest free agent signing of LeGarrette Blount. He does have a new home. He signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. What do we think about that, Dan?
As a Cowboys fan, I like it. I don't expect him to do much. Here's the thing. LeGarrette Blount, he's a decent running back. He's only really had success with the Patriots. I mean, you've seen him elsewhere with the Steelers and the Bucks, and
he had success with the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, well, the Oregon Ducks, where he likes to punch players and do different things like that. I don't see him having much success outside of New England. So I don't think he fits Doug Peterson's scheme. You see, I think they went out of shotgun 60 to 70% of the time last year. LeGarrette Blount's not a shotgun running back, so it'll be interesting to see how they use him, whether it's specifically goal line, but I'm okay with it as a Cowboys fan. I certainly don't think he's going to have even half the amount of rushing touchdowns he had last year.
Hater. We talked about last week about some of the other options, and I mentioned teams that need a running back like the Giants, and Detroit Lions, which I think would be a better fit. I don't think there was other options. I mean, whoever wants to sign them, that's great. The Eagles' running back core consistently consists of Ryan Matthews, Darren Sproles, Wendell Smallwood. So he fits in there somewhere, and he's definitely going to be the bigger back of those guys. So I don't know. I didn't see that coming, really. Orlando, what do you think about Blount going to the Eagles?
Yeah, I think he would have been a better fit with the Giants. But I know there was a deal going on with the Giants and Eagles, but I know the Eagles were able to secure him with the money they gave him. And it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was more than what the Patriots were offering, and more obviously what the Giants were offering. I would have loved to see him stay in New England, but they didn't keep him. I do think him going to Philadelphia means it's the end of Ryan Matthews. I think Ryan Matthews leaves, after this. I don't see him be on the roster next season with this signing. But I think primarily they got their goal line back. I can't see him being like a full workhorse kind of running back, but they need a goal line running back. To punch it in. I think they got their guy with LeGarrette Blount.
I completely agree with that, and I think he does have a role. So, I mean, I know Dan is saying as a Cowboys fan he loves it, but LeGarrette Blount's going to punch in 6 or 7 touchdowns on y'all with inside the 5-yard line next year. So. Not on y'all, but
I was about to say what?
That's still less than half of the amount that he scored the previous year. He had 18 touchdowns last year. He's not going to get half that. So, he just doesn't fit their scheme. Like, I understand. I don't see it happening. They're a shotgun team. They run a spread offense. I don't see it.
That's a fair point. They have screwed up the running back position for so long in Philadelphia that you're right. You're right. I'm wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. But I mean, it feels good for you to admit that. I feel better now.
It finally just had to click to me. Yeah, I mean, your boy DeMarco had the worst season possible. It was almost like a bye season. It was almost like a rest season. He got a check, didn't have to play much. Then finally came to Tennessee as a year older and was like the fourth for a while during the season. He was the number one rushing leader in the NFL, then finished, I don't know, top 5, didn't he? 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
So, they've just screwed it up. I don't know what their problem is, but anyway, I didn't really see that coming with them signing him, but I'm sure they got a plan for him, but I'm sure they'll mess that plan up anyway. But anyway, that's your latest big free agent signing. Let's move on real quickly and talk about another potential huge, by the time we do their next podcast, this may be a signing, I don't know, but there's significant talk now about the Seattle Seahawks signing Colin Kaepernick to back up Russell Wilson. I think that would be an excellent move, a great move. I'm so pro Colin Kaepernick because I just think the dude can still ball. I think he could possibly be a starter for several teams in the league still to this day. And I think he's being blackballed. And I go back to what I said last week. If you guys don't remember what Riley Cooper did, Colin Kaepernick is an altar boy. He is a saint compared, me personally, to what Riley Cooper did. Riley Cooper didn't get suspended. I don't even know if he got a fine, and definitely didn't lose his job. So I don't think it's fair the way Colin Kaepernick has been treated. And I think this would be a great choice for him. Seattle's pondering between Colin Kaepernick and RG3. I think Colin Kaepernick would be the wiser choice. Is this a natural fit, Dan? Does it make sense? Would you like to see that?
I mean, what I like to see, I really could care less. I definitely don't hold Kaepernick in the same eyes that you do. I don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's a legitimate backup, and that's what Seattle needs. I mean, Trevon Boykin is their backup right now, and he can't stay out of trouble. He got arrested 2 times already this offseason, so I don't think he's going to be their backup when the season starts. So the Seahawks have a hole. I think, if anything, it might actually cause a rift in the locker room. I mean, Russell Wilson, yes, he's definitely the leader of that team, but I've seen reports come out that people don't like the way he's getting treated by the coaching staff and front office, kind of as like a diva personality. And if Russell Wilson has a couple bad games, will you start to call for Colin Kaepernick? He's a quarterback that went to the Super Bowl before, so he has that type of ability, but it might divide a locker room. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. But the Seahawks definitely have a need for a backup quarterback, so I can see where it makes sense. And I would take Kaepernick over RG3. He's even worse off.
Well, and to talk about your point as far as being a riff in the locker room, I completely disagree. I think it'd be a brotherhood because, let's face it, Pete Carroll is more, not to be too political, but one of the more liberal coaches out there, and so is that whole northwest part of the United States. A lot of you saw what some of the Seattle players even did in taking a knee during national anthem and kind of supporting that cause in this past year. There's no question Russell Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback. I mean, there's no question, and I don't think he could actually do enough for talk to be, especially after his history with the Seahawks, for that talk to be, well, I think it's time we play Colin Kaepernick. I don't think that's the case. I just think he's going to be there in case something does happen to Russell Wilson, which Russell Wilson wasn't exactly 100%, I don't think, all year last year. So I think it'd be a perfect fit and a perfect brotherhood, and I don't think it caused a rift at all. Orlando, what's your thoughts on Kaepernick?
Yeah, no, it'll be an interesting fit at all. I mean, he's a mobile quarterback as it is, and that is basically what Russell Wilson is. I know as the years go by and that he's been in the NFL, obviously his rushing increases. And he's taken a lot of punishment a lot of times, some of the hits or, I know last year he was playing with like an ankle injury or a leg injury, so you didn't see him rush as much in the early part of the season. But it's like, with the Seahawks, Russell Wilson, it's like November to December, him and Doug Baldwin, there's something going on where they click and he's just on fire to finish out the season. I do think it'll be an interesting fit. I know Kaepernick has been gaining a lot of support from Seahawks players, especially on social media, kind of calling for Kaepernick. I think they support what he does, but I think kind of, what Dan said, I don't know so much if it'll cause the locker room to divide, but I think if you're Kaepernick and seeing what the way he's come out looking for a team, asking for tryouts, with that mindset, I think he's going to want to go and compete. I don't think he's going to want to settle for a backup. I think he'll gladly accept the role of being a part of the Seahawks or whatever team will give him a chance. But I do see Colin Kaepernick who's going to want to compete. And I don't think he's going to want to settle for second place to come in for Russell Wilson. I think this is a guy who still kind of wants to prove himself. Man, and besides the whole political stuff going on, I mean, the guy's vegan, right? Seen him lately. He's not a really big guy. Mobile quarterback like that, you kind of worry. If he scrambles off, takes off with the ball, read option or something, he takes a big hit. There's a lot of concern, of course, with taking a guy like Kaepernick. But I hope he ends up somewhere. I'm not gonna say he's a starting quarterback, but I do like the way he's kind of turned around his personality and stuff. So I don't know if he's gonna end up with the Seahawks, but it will be a pretty interesting choice if they do take him.
Yep. There you go. Just something to keep your eye on. You know what I want to do now? I want to get another guy's perspective. So joining us now, hailing from the greater Buffalo area, he's the man, the host of the Thomas Take podcast. He is Ryan Thomas. What up, dude? And tell me about Colin Kaepernick.
Thanks for having me once again, guys. It's always a pleasure. As far as Kaepernick goes, I was actually happy to see that there is a team out there that's interested. While I don't really agree with, what his stance, I do look a stance in some form, in some form of ways. And I don't think a player should be, tossed aside based on that player. I would like to see him get a backup role in the NFL. I don't think he's a starter at this point, but that doesn't mean he might not be in to the right team, under the right tutelage, working under a guy like Russell Wilson. Maybe things could maybe his fortunes could change in a couple years.
Yep. Well, I agree. And I think the role is backup for him at this point because obviously teams are not knocking down the door, to offer him a starting role or at least give him a chance to compete for the starting job. So I think this is a natural fit. I really do. I would like to see it. And basically now I'm really just kind of rooting for the guy because I see what he can do on the field, and that was not that long ago. Regardless of how you think he might fit into a certain system or not fit into a certain system, I kind of think it is now, and it's leaning towards this is more of a political thing, and I'll just never get over the fact that if you hold this against Colin Kaepernick when Riley Cooper had no kind of punishment or reprimanding at all, then that's disgusting. That's disgusting, and I think there needs to be a lot of a reevaluation with some moral values among some of these NFL owners if that is the case. So, I don't know, but like I said, maybe my next podcast will announce that Colin Kaepernick does have a job in the NFL, backup role, whatever it be. I would just like to see it. And I'd like to see him on an NFL roster because I think he's way too good. I think he's better than Jared Goff, if you want to know my honest opinion. So, there you go. But let's get into some mailbag questions. That's why the man Ryan Thomas came on here to give us his Thomas take on these mailbag questions. So you guys at home are getting bonus coverage, bonus material, bonus opinions this week on your mailbag questions. And we got a couple of from the NFL. So let's start out with that. This first one comes from Joel Evans. Eddie Lacy made his weight goal of 255 or something like that. Does this mean he finally will be relevant in fantasy? I get burned by his fat ass every year. Joel Evans. So, first of all, I would love to have this gig, guys. You tell me where I can get a job. Well, all I have to do is be under 253 pounds is what the number was, and I get $55,000, guys. Where can I get a gig like that? That is the question, Dan. Where's that job? Where do I submit my application?
I would already be working there if I knew, so I can't help you too much with that. But in regards to Lacy, I mean, props to him to getting under, 255, whatever he hit. But I wouldn't touch him in fantasy. Not only will he be splitting time in that Seattle backfield with Thomas Rawls, he just hasn't been productive on the football field itself. So he's 2 or 3 years removed from 1,000 yards rushing. He was only able to play in like 3 or 5 games last year. Didn't score a touchdown. I would stay hands off. Let somebody else deal with him.
Mr. Ryan Thomas, what do you think about Eddie Lacy? Is it going to be someone? Where would you draft him if you would draft him?
What was the guy's name that wrote the question?
Joel Evans.
Was it Joel?
Yep.
Joel Evans. Joel Evans, I feel your pain. Stay away from Eddie Lacy. Get anybody else but Eddie Lacy. At this point, there was a reason Green Bay let him go. He is not what he once was. They have time. Dan said, I trust Rawls far more than I trust Eddie Lacy. Even when Rawls had the injury last year, he came back from it and showed some decent things. Eddie Lacy, the only injuries that I know of that he has had is the ankle and his overweight issues,
which may tie together.
I would stay away from it. I would not take him, especially even if Eddie Lacy is at the right weight. I can't trust that he's going to get the workload that I would want from a running back two, even, and that's my stance on that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a gamble. Orlando, what would you think about Eddie Lacy going into the fantasy drafts this year?
I think if someone takes him, I think they're just kind of taking him with the mindset of the risk, but with the reward. I think that would be the mindset. I don't think anybody's going to take him as a one or two, maybe just like a third or fourth option on fantasy. But even at that, I don't even know how good I feel about taking a guy like Thomas Rawls. He's probably going to get hurt again. I hate to say it, but that offensive line is not as good in Seattle. If I'm taking
you don't need to take any more guys getting hurt, Orlando. You need to take healthy guys on vitamins.
But if I'm high on the running back on Seattle, it's CJ Procise. But as far as Eddie Lacy, yeah, I feel his pain too, because for the past 2 years, I tried to believe in Eddie Lacy and I got burned too. Damn it. So I feel for the guy, Joe.
Well, I guess I'm agreeing with you guys. I would like him. Well, first of all, he's listed as the Seahawks' #1 running back right now, which I think even after camp going into the season, I think he will be. I think he will be atop of Thomas Rawls.
It would be nice to see that. It'll be nice to see Eddie Lacy step up and kind of do that. That's what, if you could step up and be that Eddie Lacy from early on in the Green Bay days. But aren't you embarrassed by that they had to pay you? The money's great, but they had to pay you to stay underweight. That's kind of embarrassing for an NFL player, for a running back like Eddie Lacy.
Well, I think if he hits 1,000 yards, he gets another huge bonus. So there's a lot of bonus stipulations within his contract with the Seahawks. But that's my #1 problem with him. While, yes, if he probably is going to be listed as the #1 running back going into the season, let's face it, he just barely by like 2 pounds made that minimum weight requirement required by the Seahawks. And I just don't know that he has the commitment. He has not shown that in the last 2-3 years, that he does not have the commitment to be in the best shape he possibly could. And this is almost like a second chance for him. His NFL career is going to be over within 4 years by far, I would think. So this is pretty much it for him. You need to be in the best shape you possibly can. But here's the thing. If I was the most wildly optimistic Eddie Lacy fan, I could go as high as a 4th-round pick if I selected 2 stud, say, wide receivers with 2 out of my first 3 rounds. If I was really needing a running back, with that, going around to the 4th round, and Eddie Lacy happened to be there, and I was wildly optimistic about him finally making it in Seattle and cutting weight and being in really good shape. We know the P90X thing last year, obviously that didn't work. As Ryan talked about the ankle injury, I think some of his weight conditioning and his training had something to do with that. But I do think having a more mobile quarterback and just a wide open, more offense as Seattle is, it may even help Eddie Lacy if he can cut weight and stay if he can stay in good shape, which is the biggest problem he has had. But I think we're all a little bit timid and scared from Eddie Lacy. I think I may be the highest on him, drafting him 4th. Yeah, that's the bottom line. I think I may be the most wildly optimistic with him, saying that I would draft him in the 4th round.
Yeah, that's scary. That's 4th round, man. I hope you do that in our league.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
That's an Orlando Torres move right there.
Wait, hold up. Don't even pull that, because Marshawn is going to be behind a great O-line, okay? Marshawn is going to have a great O-line. So you can't compare him to Eddie Lacy.
If I have...
Go
ahead, Ryan.
Wait, I have one. Wouldn't you take this as an insult if you're Marshawn Lynch? That this is the guy that they're quote unquote replacing you with? After all he did for the franchise, that Eddie Lacy is the guy that
wasn't that his decision though? I mean, that was kind of Marshawn Lynch's decision.
Well, yeah. But I mean, it just you can tell that they're trying to find that Marshawn Lynch type guy, and they think that that's Eddie Lacy. I think that's a stretch.
The only thing Eddie Lacy and Marshawn Lynch have in common are their love of candy.
Skittles.
The dreadlocks too.
Yeah.
Dreads.
Yeah. Okay, but here's a scenario for you guys. This is where you kid and mock about me possibly taking him fourth in the fourth round. But if I happen to wind up some wild scenario where I selected AJ Green and Des Bryant with my first two picks,
that's even worse. Because then you're relying on Eddie Lacy to be your number one running back.
I didn't say that. Because I probably would for sure, and just common sense is going to tell you, if I wound up with AJ Green and Des Bryant in the first two rounds, I'm going running back the next round. And I think I have better options than Eddie Lacy in the third round. But if I want to beef up my running back core, and Eddie Lacy is the best available, and he's going into the season as the number one running back, you guys know how it is. As long as there's a number one running back and announced starter for a team, which you think he's going to get a significant amount of reps, then he has value. He has fantasy value. So if he goes in after training camps and goes into the season, hopefully we'll have our draft shortly before the start of the season and not like in, June, like some crazies. But if after all said and done, and he's going into the season as the listed number one running back for Seattle, and I've stacked my, the cards like I just said I did, then I guess I would consider that if he's going against the number one running back, because number one running backs, there's only 32 of them.
So, I get what you're saying, but there's only a few number one running backs, because at the end of the day, he's still stuck in a committee with Ross and ProSize. So even if he's listed as number one, he's not going to be that full force number one running back that you think you're going to get. I'm
not as high on ProSize as you are, Orlando.
Well, and if you're number one running back and average 2.3 yards a carry, that's not getting you fantasy points. So
let's also be fair, guys. He's been playing in Green Bay his whole career, not a running scheme. Okay, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw 85% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's that high. Go ahead, Ryan. Yeah,
I think any time you even have to question who's going to get the ball in a backfield, I just stay away from it. It's too risky, too many what ifs, too much chances. Not only has he had problems with his weight, he's had problems just staying on the field. I'd stay clear of it. As Orlando, I believe Orlando said, Seattle's offensive line is not that great. It's not that much better than Green Bay's. Russell Wilson was hit often last year. So I don't know if the Eddie Lacy fit from me to Seattle was a good move. I don't think that was a good fit for him in general.
Okay. Well, we'll see, guys. It all has to play out. Like I said, I stick by my scenario if that's the way it plays out. Very wildly optimistic scenario, like I said, but that's what I say. So there you go, Joel Evans. There's your Eddie Lacy talk. Good luck to you. Next NFL question comes from Darrell King. I may be biased because I'm an Eagles fan, but Kirk Cousins came in number 70 in the NFL's top 100 players. Do you feel he's actually a franchise quarterback? And a franchise quarterback takes his team to the playoffs and wins games, boys, says Darrell King. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. That sounds about right to me because there was stretches in the early part of the season last year when he was the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. They went through ups and downs, but he made Jordan Reed a lot of money and made him look really good last year. So at this point, yeah, I think he's a franchise quarterback. They added Terrell Pryor this year. It has Josh Doxson. Added a super stud tight end, which I say watch out for, and that's 6'6", 260-pound Jeremy Sprinkle from Arkansas, who has speed for that size and great hands. He will be a stud tight end eventually. So I like him. I think Cousins is in no danger of losing his job despite offseason trade rumors. It just didn't happen. He's going to be the number one quarterback by far. Really didn't have much backup. Colt McCoy, who's about 47 years old at this point, I think. So no danger of losing his job. I mean, the problem with winning games and going into the playoffs is he plays in an incredibly hard division. They're going to be fourth in that division this year. Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Redskins. That's the way the order is going to fall this year. So it doesn't matter how good Kirk Cousins plays. That's the order of the division this year. So franchise quarterback, yeah, it's going to be tough to really shine, and really separate yourself. But he's definitely a franchise quarterback for, I would say, probably at least 25% of the league. You could do better. There's several teams, right there in the New York area that probably could use a Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I think he's a franchise quarterback. Dan, what up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends how you look at valuing franchise quarterback. I think he's definitely a franchise quarterback worth being a starting quarterback of a franchise, if that's what that means. But if you're looking at his definition and wins playoff games, then no. I mean, he hasn't done that, so he's not that type of quarterback. I mean, I have him kind of in middle of the pack. He's middle of the road. He's not great, but he's not bad. He's serviceable. He puts up numbers. I think a lot of the numbers are mainly due to Gruden's system that he's in. But I put him on par with like a Ryan Tannehill and Andy Dalton. They can get you to the playoffs, but they're not going to win you games. He's not that game-changing type of a quarterback. He's kind of a stopgap solution. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with him. You're probably not going to go to a championship game. You'll be lucky if you get out of the wild card round of the playoffs. So I think he's definitely serviceable, but I wouldn't put him as an elite quarterback by any means.
As far as winning playoff games, though, Dan, don't you think that's more of a product of the division he plays in? They're not getting past those teams. I don't care what's around him. They're not getting past those teams.
It's a quarterback-driven league. If you're a good quarterback, you can take your team to the playoffs. That's the way I look at it. And you can in the playoffs, if you have a quarterback, you can win. So I mean, I think if he was elite, kind of like Andrew Luck did a few years ago when he went to the AFC Championship, the team around him was garbage, but he was able to get him there. Kirk Cousins isn't an Andrew Luck in my eyes, so I don't see it.
So let me go to our other NFC East boy, Orlando Torres. Sorry, I'm mixing you two guys. But what do you think about him? I mean, he plays in a tough division, right?
No, he does play in a tough division. But I would say, yeah, he's a franchise quarterback. I mean, I think it'd be different if you're asking if I was asking if Kirk Cousins is elite, then I think that's a whole other question. But yeah, I know he doesn't have any playoff wins, but I mean, his first year as a full-time starter, he took the team to the playoffs. I know he set the team record for passing yards in the season, and I think he ranked in the top 10 for passers in the league the past 2 years. So I would say, yeah, and this is all while trying to prove to his bosses that he deserves a long-term deal. So the fact that, he went up there and kind of, he put his money where his mouth is, I mean, says a lot. I think.
And came in with RG3 and won that battle. Let's face it, he won that battle.
Yeah, he won that battle. And, I mean, to be fair, yeah, they got Jordan Reed. He had Deshaun Jackson, but Deshaun Jackson suffered from hamstring injuries time to time. He hasn't really had a whole lot of talent around him. I think, it'd be different if, they go out and get him a little bit more. I mean, it's going to be you got Terrell Pryor this year, so that's pretty good. You got Jordan Reed. I'm not too sure about the running back situation. But as far as a franchise quarterback at this time, I would say, yeah. Elite, I would agree, no. I would be in the same boat as Dan, but franchise, yeah. I think he's done quite a bit for that franchise, and I don't think he's gotten the help he's needed in return from his bosses.
I couldn't have said it better than what Orlando just said. Ryan?
I think with 100% certainty that he's a franchise quarterback. I mean, where would Washington be without him if they didn't go RG3 second overall and then Kirk Cousins, whatever it was, in the fourth round of that same draft? That was in hindsight, that was the genius move because RG3 got hurt. It ruined his career. Kirk Cousins comes in and takes over, drove RG3 out of Washington. We're talking about who they have on offense. I want to know who they have on defense. They've had one of the worst defenses in the NFL at least the last 5 years. So, I think that their fortunes would change if they had more of a defense on that team.
Yep, I agree with that too. So before we wrap up NFL talk, I'll just say one last thing is that we like to talk about fantasy here, and that's what we do. It's My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. So we talk fantasy, and from a fantasy perspective, I played Kirk Cousins a lot of times in daily fantasy last year, and most of the time he did not disappoint, and I would think that same trend will continue this next year. So from a fantasy perspective, yeah, he's a franchise quarterback. He's going to be a very good value even next year in fantasy football. So, but we're going to talk Major League Baseball next and answer your mailbag questions. You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. The whole crew is here, man. So many voices in your head to hear and listen to and ponder their thoughts and iron out the details and take away all of our opinions here. So bonus to you this week on My Fantasy Podcast. Brandon Reed, Dan Shaw, Orlando Torres is here, and Ryan Thomas is here just in time to talk Major League Baseball. And we've got several fantasy questions this week. You guys, that apparently, Orlando broke the news to me this week that you guys want more fantasy baseball. So I'm like, okay, we'll do that. So we're going to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I am not kidding. I was actually surprised. When I was watching that Game 6 of Spurs and Rockets, a friend introduced me. He's like, yeah, he writes for My Fantasy Sports Talk, and they were familiar with the site, and they said, well, we're familiar with the site, but we kind of stopped keeping up with it. And I asked why, and they said, well, first of all, you called My Fantasy Sports Talk. They're like, there's no fantasy news coming out. I was like, well, we do fantasy news, but one of their main complaints, they wanted more baseball. And they weren't too happy that
Of course they did.
Yeah, they want more baseball, more fantasy. And they were kind of pretty pissed that they got more WWE articles out of us rather than baseball. So I was like, you know what? I'll take it to the head honchos, but I have no control over a lot of that stuff.
Orlando, you're hanging out in the wrong bars, man. You're hanging out in the wrong clubs, whatever you do. But no.
How do you think I felt? I kind of had, I was kind of surprised.
Hey, no, I love it. And I love it that they watch and keep up with it. And guys, let's be honest, we cover fantasy when it's relevant. We cover a ton of NFL fantasy. We cover really a lot of NBA fantasy. So in baseball season, it's almost like it's about this time or maybe even June before everything else settles down to really settle into baseball. But okay, you asked for it. I promise you guys, we're going to go heavy fantasy baseball from here on out because I got a championship to win and I want that to happen. So I need you guys to help me out. And we're going to start this week. Dale Casey is going to help me out with the first question. I got offered Aaron Judge for Josh Donaldson. I have Donaldson. He's about to come off DL. Who will have the more points the rest of the season? So let's go first of all to our baseball expert, one of our baseball experts on the panel today, Dan. And I know this is kind of trending off of our topic about the Yankees from last week, and you said that trend is about to spiral. Ryan agreed with you. You were pretty much saying the same thing there. So is Aaron Judge going to be part of that as well, though?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge has put up phenomenal numbers in, his first so many games. And I definitely think he's going to be a solid pro, a great player who can put up numbers. But he's not going to put them up at the same rate that he is currently. So he's still a rookie. Pitchers are, getting their scouting reports. They're going to learn how to pitch to him. So I do expect his numbers to kind of downturn. I personally am a Josh Donaldson owner, and I'm excited to get him back from the DL. So, listen, Josh Donaldson is always going to hover around 300. He's going to smash 30 home runs. He's going to get close to 100 RBIs. He's set in stone. You know what you're getting with him. Aaron Judge, you're going more for a potential play. So I would keep Donaldson if I were you. Right now too, I mean, that's a pretty decent offer, but his value in fantasy right now is low just because he's coming off the DL. So I would stick it out. I would ride with Donaldson. If you're worried about this season and the rest of the season's points, Donaldson is going to be your pick.
Brian?
I agree with Dan. As far as Aaron Judge goes, as Dan said, the pitchers are still trying to figure him out. Out of the 39 hits that he has this season, 14 are home runs. So he's been basically boom or bust, for the lack of a better term, per game. You look at his game log, there's 1 for 4s with a home run. There's 2 for 4s with 2 home runs. So he's either hitting the long ball or he's not. And that's too much of a chance to think that he'll put up better numbers compared to Josh Donaldson, who I think is probably the best third baseman in the game. He is on the DL right now, as Dan said. But once he comes back, that's a jolt to a team's lineup. I would go with keeping Donaldson and letting Judge stay on the other team.
Orlando, what's your take on these guys? Whether Josh Donaldson, who is a lot of preseason polls and people predicted that he would be in the AL MVP race, or would you go with the big new monster in Aaron Judge?
Long term, I'll stick with Donaldson. I guess I would see Aaron Judge as a type if you're going for that kind of risk-reward type of play. If you want to go for those kind of points or chase kind of those home run type of points, I mean, obviously Aaron Judge is kind of guy, especially if you have a pretty stacked lineup, or if you need to make a move. Maybe your season, I know it's still early on, but maybe your season hasn't gotten off to the start you want to. Maybe you kind of need a boom like that, like Aaron Judge, and if you're willing to take the risk, I could see someone making that move. But if you're pretty set, you have a pretty good rotation on your lineup, and your record's pretty good overall, I would sit on Josh Donaldson.
Well, I'm going to play contrarian to you guys then, just for an opposite opinion. I think coming off the calf injury with Donaldson, he will – my numbers were on par exactly to what Dan said before. I think with the injury missing about a month of the season, he's going to hit probably about 35 homers, around 95 RBIs, in that neighborhood. You know what you're going to get. With Aaron Judge, and I'm going to agree with Ryan, it is boom or bust. The dude's playing incredible right now. He's a monster, and he's hitting 5th in that Yankees lineup, so there's always going to be that RBI potential. I say right on the back of the big new monster. That's my opinion. So Donaldson is probably the safer play. Like I said, he was predicted by a lot of people to be in that conversation for AL MVP going into the season. None of that's really changed. He's going to do what he does, but we don't know about Aaron Judge. I would say ride with it. If you had the foresight to draft him or pick him up early, then I would ride with him. Or if I'm in the shoes of Dale Casey, I would trade for him. I know it's scary, but that's what I would do. So just play contrarian for you guys. So and cloud your mind, Dale Casey. So good luck to you. Let us know how the trade went. Let's move on and talk about the next one from Cole Beacon. Who is a guy or guys that are great stash players? A couple of guys on waivers in my league are David Dahl, Drew Smiley. Is it Smiley, Dan? How do you pronounce it?
Smiley. Yep.
Smiley, yeah.
Like
Smiley.
you're always smiling.
Yeah. I just thought that was too obvious. Smiley. J.A. Happ, Colin McHugh. Any of these guys worth grabbing and stashing? Cole Beacon. Dan? And, of course, I guess when you listen to my response, this is more about guys who are on the free agents wire right now in our league. But I think what he's looking for is guys in the DL right now that are worth grabbing, waiting it out, and stashing until the time when they're back fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I like your list. I had a couple of these guys. I dropped one recently just because half of my team was injured, so I needed the space, and that was Drew Smiley, who I dropped. He's a decent guy, but he might have a 4 to 5 ERA, so holding on to him might be a little iffy. David Dahl, I'm a big believer in. I actually have him in a couple leagues that I'm holding on to him. He was a late call-up last year, but hit 300, has some power, has that RBI depth, and playing in Coors Field in Colorado, the air is going to let those balls go a little bit further. So I like Dahl a lot. A guy, I don't know if he's going to be available in your league, but wasn't named, that I am keeping my eye on is Tyson Ross, starting pitcher who's with the Rangers now. He's been with the Padres the past few years. He's expected to come off the DL at the end of May. But this is a pitcher who has sometimes a sub-3 ERA. He'll get you a strikeout an inning. So with low ERA, the potential for some wins with that Rangers lineup, that's another guy I would consider stashing along with Dahl. But it's a pretty solid list. Just to touch on some of the other ones, Colin McHugh, I know a lot about him being an Astros fan. I'd be a little wary of stashing him. You don't know exactly when he's going to come back. And the Astros I have a feeling they're going to be making a move. So Colin McHugh might be involved. So he might be heading out of Houston. So I would monitor his situation before picking him up.
Ryan, who are the guys that may be on the DL right now that you would consider grabbing and stashing?
J.A. Happ is the guy that I would consider stashing. Last year with Toronto, he had a fairly decent year, an underrated season that he was once a Philadelphia Philly, I believe, moved from Philly to Toronto. That's a guy that I would pick up and stash. Could be like a starting pitcher 3 or 4 that could get you that middle of the week dependent start that so few pitchers really offer in fantasy baseball. So J.A. Happ would be that guy for me.
Well, again, I thank you guys, as I've been telling you for weeks, for submitting the questions and helping me out, because you get me looking pretty more in depth at the free agent wire. So my response to Cole is one of the guys I think who you were looking for, Ian Kennedy today, because he could start back early as Saturday, and I've lost 2 of the last 3 weeks after talking all that noise. I think Dan started the downhill trend for me, I think, and then I lost last week, so I've just been too stagnant in my lineup. But picked up Ian Kennedy. He could start as early as Saturday, and I think he'll put up average or better than average fantasy numbers, so I think that was worth picking up. But a couple of the other guys, I made a couple of moves today, so watch out my fantasysportstalk.com fantasy league. Your leader is back. I've got a cortisone shot, so to speak, and I'm on the rise. But I think I made my 7th, 8th, or 9th acquisition today. But guys that were available in free agency, not necessarily on the DL, but available in free agency today, is I picked up another Happ, Ian Happ, outfielder for the Cubs, and he just called up a few days ago, and this is kind of a temporary play, but he has 4 hits, 4 RBIs, and 2 homers, and 10 at-bats, period, through 3 games. So I'm going to ride that wave until it flatlines. So we'll see what happens. And Joe Madden has hinted that he's probably going to stay on the squad. He's probably going to stay up in the big leagues. Another guy is I picked up Jose Barrios. Is it Barrios or Barrios, Dan? From the Twins.
It depends who you talk to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's one of those ones that go either way. But I picked him up, recently called up on Mother's Day, had his 2017 debut, shutting out the Indians, which is a pretty decent offensive squad, only allowing 4 base runners in 7 2/3 innings, off 2 hits and a walk through 104 pitches, and 71 of them were strikes. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes with him. But his 2017 debut was pretty good, worth 27 fantasy points. So I'm going to ride that wave until it's over too. This is tough for me, guys, because there's so many baseball players. And you talk about AAA level, AA level, single A level. It's very tough. It's very tough, and I'm behind the 8 ball, but I'm making moves. And thanks to guys like Cole Beacon, I'll be right there at the top facing Dan in the championship of the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Baseball Fantasy League. Promise you. Let's move on to the next question. John Tresbish. And this is what I talk about, those minor league prospects. I looked at this question, I'm like, what the hell? How am I supposed to know? I can only get to so many Redbirds games per year, guys. But anyway, what prospect not named Mankata currently in the minors will make the biggest fantasy impact this year? Comes from John Trebesh. So help him out, Dan.
I love this question. This one drew my eye right away when John submitted it. I'm in a dynasty league where we actually play minor league players, and it's probably my most favorite league of any sport, of anyone. It's just one league, and it's deep. So a couple guys that instantly came to my mind. I'm going to give you 3. One I have on my team, and that's Josh Hader. He's a starting pitcher. in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He originally came from the Astros. He was traded midseason a few years ago. He's touching high 90s on the gun. He's struggling a little bit this year, but he is playing in Colorado. So with the high elevations, the ball tends to carry a little bit more. He's got about a 4 ERA right now, but when he comes up, I think he's averaging 11 or 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, which if it's a strikeout league, you're going to want pitchers that can make him miss. So he's a guy to definitely keep your eye on. Josh Hader from the Brewers. Another guy is Lewis Brinson, an outfielder from the Texas Rangers. He's crushing the ball in AAA right now.
Check him off my list. There you go. Stealing my thunder.
327. I think he's got 4 or 5 home runs. He hits a lot of extra base hits. Definitely a guy. If the Rangers can find a spot for him, that's the big issue. I think he would be already be up right now. But they have so many outfielders. When you look at Shin-Soo Choo, Carlos Gomez, another young guy, Nomar Mazara, Joey Gallo. So they got to find a spot for him. Chu's going to get hurt if he hasn't already. Gomez, I think, actually just went on the DL, so you might see him come up, be called up pretty soon. And then the third guy is Reynaldo Lopez, another pitcher who's in the White Sox organization. He came over from the Nationals in an offseason trade. He's got a mid-3 ERA, but he's another guy who can throw it high juice on the gun, and he's going to get you those strikeouts. So expect him to be called up soon as the White Sox start to come back to life in the standings, dropping down even more.
Ryan, we may be putting you on the spot. I'm not sure you were even privy to this question beforehand. I got a chance to study it up, but
no problem at all. I'm good. I got one.
That's why you're here, man. That's why you were the host of the Thomas Take. Go for it.
So this past offseason, my favorite baseball team, the Boston Red Sox, made a big trade in which they acquired Chris Sale, and in that trade, they traded Yoan Moncada to the Chicago White Sox. They also traded a starting pitcher. That starting pitcher's name is Michael Kopech. Now, right now, he's 2-2, wins, losses in the minor leagues, AAA, AA. But the White Sox are so bad that I would not be shocked if they were 30 games below 500 at the later portion of the season. But when Michael Kopech would get called up early, this guy throws straight past 106 miles an hour, 107 miles an hour. He is opening a lot of eyes around the AAA ranks, and he was definitely a guy that I was excited to see debut as a Red Sox, but sometimes when you want a player, you have to give up a player, and they gave up Moncada and Kopech and I believe 2 others. So maybe he won't make it to the major leagues at after the All-Star break. I would say more maybe August or September. It could be a late addition to a team that could be a phenom late in the season.
There you go. A lot of different names, and as I said earlier, Dan kind of stole my thunder on one of them. I had 2 guys on my list, Dan. You stole one of them, Lewis Brinson. Because to date he's hitting .336, on base percentage of .414, slugging percentage of .533, 36 hits, 4 homers, 15 RBIs, 14 walks, and 5 stolen bases in 27 games. 6'3", good speed and a good eye. Former first-round pick by the Rangers in 2012. So he was one of them. Definitely think he's a high prospect. So I guess the only other thing I have to offer to you is, John, is Christian Walker right now, the Reno Aces, which our man Dustin Brown may know a little bit about, but he leads the Pacific Coast League in RBIs with 42, and he is second in home runs with 10 through 37 games. He also just hit for the cycle Saturday night, so he could be making enough noise for the D-backs to give him a look really soon. So there's your names. There's your guys. Appreciate the question, John Trebesh. Let us know what you think. We'll keep an eye on all this. Keep submitting fantasy baseball questions because, as Orlando said, that's what you guys want this time of year. It's going to be a long, hot summer. So let's submit those baseball questions and get into it. Help me win that championship over the much-favored Dan Chalk in the fantasy league. Orlando, what's your last words, man? You're doing great with the NBA playoff pieces. We got to let you go so we can get into this this Cavs Celtics game. I know you'll be covering that, and then good luck to your Spurs the rest of the way until we meet next time. Just your final words, Orlando.
Keep submitting the questions, fantasy questions. I'm gonna start working on it's never too early to start preparing for fantasy, whether it's basketball for next season or football. So I'm gonna start working on some rankings as well. And speaking of that Cavs Celtics game, LeBron had 15 points in the first quarter. It's not looking too good for the Celtics. I will say that.
Yeah, no, man, he's taking over. He's that rest, man. He got that rest. He's been itching to play basketball for over a week. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man. Sorry you got put on the spot, but you did a great job covering minor league baseball for us.
There's no such thing as putting me on the spot. It's just not possible. I want to say too, I tuned into the show before I popped on, and I really enjoyed the NBA playoffs, especially about LeBron James. I mean, I think everybody should be done doubting this guy. I think it's ridiculous. It blows my mind, the people that say that he's not at least in the top 5 all time. To me, he is already. So, man, I'm a Celtics fan, but I really admire LeBron. Everything about LeBron, I'm a big fan. So I'm rooting for him to prove the doubters wrong again.
If you still got doubters out there, then there's not very educated basketball fans, and they're old school, and they don't like the new era of the NBA because LeBron is definitely in the top. God, he's got to be in the top 4 of everybody's list realistically. So it's in the physical.
If he wins one more, he's top 2. Top 2 if he wins one more championship.
I think so because
For sure.
I think and this is a conversation we're going to bring you back in Orlando and of course Ryan as well, but we're going to have this whole conversation again in the next couple of weeks. I promise you, because to me, I think LeBron is maybe the most second or third most physically dominating player pound for pound in the NBA in history behind Shaq and maybe Wilt Chamberlain, because of the time that Wilt Chamberlain played in. But I think he's the most physically dominant player and play 1 through 5. That's why I said he probably should have wear number 15 because he can play 1 through 5. But thanks a lot for joining us, Ryan and Dan. Last word. Yep. Dan, last word. What is going on the website right now? Entertainment. We're going to start getting the draft profiles going on. Another new partnership, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and one of that led us into the LeVar Ball and Lonzo Ball questions is that we got a new partnership with 12up.com, and they produce good pieces, and that kind of sparked that debate question today.
Yeah. My Fantasy Sports Talk has reached an agreement with 12up.com to kind of just mutually share each other's posts. So they're going to pick up some of our articles that are written on My Fantasy Sports Talk and actually put them up on 12up. And we're doing the same on my Fantasy Sports Talk, mainly our social media pages, and just sharing, putting the word out there. They do a lot of great articles. So why not? Share that on our pages. So I'm definitely excited about that. The entertainment section, as usual, is busting out with the reviews. Orlando does a great job covering all the NBA playoff games. And yeah, my draft profiles on the NBA draft are slowly but surely coming out. We got a couple. I got Markelle Fultz and Josh Jackson done, the 2 guys who, Brandon's number 1 pick and my number 1 pick. So it works out. You're going to see more start to come through as the days and as we get closer to the NBA draft. So definitely looking forward to it. Always check out the site. A lot of great articles and everything. And, podcasts, our highlight pieces, everything are up on the site or right directly on YouTube.
Yep, no doubt. Check it out daily. And for you guys, next week, we promise we will talk the latest in the NBA playoffs and continue the NBA draft prep for you leading up and getting closer to our live draft show on June 22nd. We're also going to talk NFL, MLB, the latest news, latest breaking news from the world of sports, period. And, of course, answer your mailbag questions, even if there's 17 fantasy baseball questions. The more fantasy baseball questions you ask, the closer I get to a championship. So Appreciate it. Keep them coming. Any sport, any topic, we'll talk about it. Also, thanks for watching us on YouTube, and thanks for listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, WBLZ Sports, ESPN Sports Podcasting Network, and WBLZ Sports at WBLZsports.com. And, of course, don't forget to check out that website daily, as Dan was just talking about, myfantasysportstalk.com. Why go anywhere else for sports and entertainment? That's the question. You're going to be made fun of. Ask the question, should I go anywhere else for sport and entertainment other than myfantasysportstalk.com? You're going to get laughed out of whatever room you're in. So don't do that. Don't be made fun of. It just don't make sense. myfantasysportstalk.com. Thanks to Orlando Torres for being here. Thanks for Ryan Thomas for figuring out his technical devices and his phone this week and joining us live on the podcast. For Dan the Man Sharp, I am Brandon Reed. See you next time. Later.